Hello again. Okay, so I'm going to start my talk on education reform, or how I would reform education. Of course, we are limiting this to high school education because college would be too difficult, and also, people doing better in high school would help them to do better in college. And I'm going to start with talking about foreign language classes. Um, Sort of hard to learn, in my opinion. For me, at least, it was. Now then, worked for a university, had foreign students go there from time to time. Well, and one complaint I would have is I talk too fast, which for an American I talk sort of slow actually. um, I do when I get excited speed up some. If I'm bored with what I'm talking about, say I had to give a some talk, give the same instruction over and over and over again, I speed up. Even if I'm not talking to the same person, um, it's just the sort of thing it gets to be rote, and I just start to speak faster. That could be part of it. However, like I said, on average, I speak slower than most Americans, I believe. But that is the big problem with foreign language classes is that you you start off learning at least slowly, and then when do they speed up? My experience, I took 1 year of French. Not 1 year, took French in high school. First year we started slow, had to learn stuff. Never really sped up the first year. Come around to the second year, different teacher, so teacher just sort of assumes that we know this stuff and starts faster without any warning to us. We've been out for the summer, so most of us haven't been speaking French, haven't had an opportunity to really. Probably a few students who did, but most of us didn't think to practice our French over the summer. Uh, those who did would have trouble finding someone who wanted to practice with them, just because other students wouldn't want to waste their summer speaking French. Again, there'd be a few people who could manage to pull it off. And so we go back to the next year, and the next teacher just sort of assumes we know it well enough to start speaking faster. So it's harder. Plus, they start throwing in new stuff. It was the second year of French where we started learning our new pronouns: indirect object, direct object, personal pronouns, which are all similar to each other. Some of them are the exact same, all used in sort of the same place. So it's like, I believe most of the time it was before a verb. And so makes it easier, you would think. It makes it easier going from English to French, at least. Because we just need to know the formula, basically, and plug the right pronoun in the right place. The other way around, it all sounds the same. Like I said, in some cases it was actually the same word used or the same pronoun used in all three instances. It's in the same place in the sentence, and the teacher's talking faster. So we have to somehow break down, is this being used as a personal pronoun or possessive pronoun, a direct object, an indirect object? So we have to listen to the entire sentence, we have to break it all down. All the while, the teacher expects us to pick this up faster. And, they want us to respond faster. So the speed with which they go at is a problem. Or the speeding up is the problem. And my solution for this, and as I said in the last video, spoiler alert, all of my solutions are more time, teach stuff slower. I believe we should go through, teach the basics, go, a month or two teaching the basics, and then spend a week going over the same material faster. So we get the time to learn it slower, and then we speed it up a little. Then we learn some more stuff, and then we go do the same stuff. We learn it slowly, we speed it up a little. How many times should we speed it up? Should we start slow speed, then go to a medium speed, then go back and do it at a, quote unquote normal speed, average speed for a native speaker of that language? That might work. It would take more time. So perhaps, I like I said, more time is the spending more time on it is the solution. How much more time? Um, Deadlines do serve a purpose. It's just sometimes we set the wrong deadline. So it's a matter of we got to go back, look at the deadlines, and decide how fast we expect students to learn stuff, and in order to learn it within that time frame, what is the best way to go about it? And in my, I think we should push the deadline a little, and then use the extra time to speed up what we're learning. That's one thing. Now, another thing is the content. Most people, we are taking conversational French, conversational Spanish, conversational German, which is how most of us are going to use it. Again, my experience, I working for a university, enforcing regulations for lab safety. We are not going to be talking conversational stuff here. We are going to be talking specific to the work being done. So we did have in college the opportunity, after we took the basic conversational languages, I could have taken French for scientists, and they would have introduced verbs used in science and experiments. They would have given names for equipment used. They would have gone into stuff like some of the names of some of the elements, science stuff, very specific, more specific stuff that you don't teach your average high school student because they aren't going to need it, but a scientist would want it. Jump back to the late 1700s, early 1800s. It wasn't unusual for an English scientist to learn French and or German because stuff is being printed. Science is going on all around the world. People are publishing stuff in their native language. English, French, and German were probably the three most prolific for printing papers. And so if you wanted to follow up on what was going on in the world and keep abreast with other research, it helped to know another language. And again, French and German were the two most likely. And so, high school or college courses, they have the basic, and then they have like subject specific. You can take French for music, and of course it's not going to go in for all majors, but it will go in for the ones where you're more likely to run into, I have to read this paper in a foreign language. That would have been useful. Now, there is an old, trope, cliche, whatever you want to call it. People think when you're talking to someone in a foreign language, if you speak louder and speak slower, they will understand you. And again, that makes sense up to a point, because when we learn a foreign language, it's easier for us. We learn it slowly. And when do we speed up? And sometimes, that's the problem a lot of people have with a foreign language, is they sped up without warning. So maybe they do know English, but if I speak it slower, they will understand it because they learned it at a slower rate, and when their teachers sped up, they weren't ready for it. That could apply. It's been a long time since I've spoken French, but I could probably understand it if it was spoken slowly enough. Same with, and then the same with speaking louder. When you learn in school, if another student is mumbling, sometimes that's a problem. So the idea, if this person doesn't understand English, speaking louder and speaking slower isn't going to help. But if they learned English and are just having trouble understanding me, maybe it's because I'm speaking too fast or too quietly. So maybe I should speak up, or maybe I should speed up. So it makes, it's something we make fun of, but at the same time, it is somewhat understandable why some people might believe that speaking slower or speaking louder would work. Because when we learn at the wrong speed, or we don't speed up as we should in the learning process. So that's most of it. So that's how I would fix the foreign language programs. Is I would slow them down a bit, or not slow them down, but well, let's phrase our slowing downs here. I would slow down the process or extend the deadlines. So instead of trying to learn them, or trying to learn this much in 1 year, we're learning maybe 75% of that in 1 year. And with the other 25% of our time, we are going back to what we learned previously, like last week, last month, whatever, and we are speeding it up a little. So we start off, bonjour, very slow, whatever, and then hop back to what we learned last month, and we go over it again faster. And we do that, break down the language, decide when is the best time to stop and learn the old stuff faster, when's the best time to learn new stuff, which we're going to go at a slower speed again, and then we're going to go back and speed up over that again. So it'll take some time, a little work to figure out the best way to do it, but that is the way I would do it, is review the stuff more than once. And the first time we do it slowly, then we go back and we review it a little faster, and then maybe a third time doing it at average speed for a native speaker of that language. That is it. That is how I would reform the foreign language classes at our modern high schools. Have a nice day. Or au revoir.